Okay. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining today. Really excited to share this webinar with you guys, focusing today on personal branding and it's something that I'm sure many of you have heard about and has been part of things that your organizations have been trying to understand. How are your individual personal brands showing up and contributing to the health and the growth of your organizations? For senior leaders, for business development executives, for anyone that is customer facing, this trend of relying on your personal brand to grow the business has become not just something that forward thinking individuals are leveraging, but really entire organizations are coming to understand the importance of and investing in. So that's really why we wanted to bring this topic to this group today, is to start to give you all the tools and the strategies for beginning to think about how to build and cultivate your personal brand. We have two amazing partners that have joined us today from Strata Originals. Alan McLaren is here. He's a digital marketer, personal brand expert, more than 25 years of experience, the co-founder of Strata, and really an expert in this space. And we're going to hear from him really how they approach helping build personal brands for executives and business development leaders. Leanne has also joined us from Strata. She's a wealth of experience, really deep history in PR and media. Both individuals started on the marketing, kind of traditional marketing side, and realized within the last few years that there's a huge need for personal brand development within the B2B space, and started this agency to help the executives cultivate these personal brands. So excited to hear what they're going to share today. A few rules to run this webinar. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I appreciate if you could put any questions into the chat window. There's a little chat button at the top of your screen, just slightly to the left. Please put your questions in there. I'll bring those up when we have a pause in the conversation so that we can get those questions answered in real time. If there's something you want to wait till the end, that's fine. We are going to have a Q&A session at the end that we'll be able to ask any questions, either things that are shared in the chat, or you can always come off mute and ask those questions directly. I did get a few questions ahead of time from certain individuals, so I'll probably share a few of those as we get into the Q&A session as well. There is an audio and video piece in a couple spots here, so audios tend to look and come through very clearly in Teams, though occasionally some of the video may get a little choppy, but hopefully everything will be easily visible, and obviously the sound and audio should be in good shape. We will share content after the session, so that'll go out along with a recording to participants as a follow-up. So with that, I'd like to introduce everyone to Alan and Leanne and let you guys take it from here.
Excellent. Thank you, Bradley. Appreciate it. Leanne and I will be sharing the presentation today, and we look forward to interactive question and answer, because that's always the most fun of what we do today. The title of the presentation is Personal Brand, Unlocking Your Personal Brand, and it's really no longer a luxury. When you start thinking back to when you started your careers or leading any business, personal branding was something that you just never thought of intentionally, and we're going to be kind of thinking about that, looking at your personal brand as an asset. And the first thing we want you to think about is this: what benefits would be realized from moving from unknown to known? This isn't in the way of being a celebrity or being famous. This is really, everybody has stakeholders in their world, whether you're in business development or you're leading a company. Moving from unknown to known opens up all kinds of benefits, which we're going to share with you today, and hopefully answer any questions that you have as we go forward. So we're going to start with a fun little video.
There is no one like you. There has never been anyone like you. There shall never be anyone like you. Therefore, know yourself. Be yourself. Authenticity is everything.
When I grow up, I want a voice like that, but that's not going to happen. So Dr. Seuss was right. Only you are you. when you start to think about this, you are the only human being on the planet with your experience and your perspective. There's no other person. I don't care if you took over from a family business or you're running a business that somebody else ran, your perspectives on leadership, business development, whatever it happens to be, are yours alone. The only story that has to be told is yours. And really, that's the theme of what we want you to think about today, is kind of encourage you to think about that and how your personal brand can be a great asset for you. So we're going to play a little game here, but it's not going to be interactive. So we're going to ask and answer in this case. But I want you to think about this as we show these pictures. We're going to define now what a personal brand is. But let's start out by, when you see a picture of this gentleman, what attributes come to mind? So obviously it's rhetorical in this case, but what attributes come to mind? So we'd be thinking about, of course, a champion golfer, resilient. Some people would remember him for his dalliances, his cheating, right? Yes, Leanne, I know you're going to say it, right? so he was, so he had some dalliances and did some things, but we look at Tiger, and people have strong feelings either way about him. Next person we want to think about, of course, is Mother Teresa. So I went from A to Z in this comparison. And the things that we think about with her are kindness and holiness and godliness and just a wonderful feeling of someone who's giving back. Other people might have other thoughts around her, but seeing a picture of her brings up some attributes. And then this dude, Elon. So the interesting thing about him is he also, in the workshops that we do, brings up some very strong feelings. People think about him obviously as a genius, think about him as a little quirky, think about him as a growth mindset person. And then some of the things that people have told us is when he bought Twitter, they saw a different side of him and kind of changed their view of what he was about. And so these are just pictures of people that I don't think any of us know personally. So the question really is, how did we come up with our thoughts around that person? Well, I don't think anybody knows them. So if nobody knows them, it's about the perception of them. So the question for you, if you were not in the room and someone said your name, what would they say about you? What would they feel about you? Is it exactly what you want them to say? Or is there a gap between what you want and what they're telling you? So think about that in that context, because it's really important. That's ultimately what a personal brand is, and we all have one. And then the next question, of course, is where do you show up and how do you show up? Are you a different person depending on the role you play? Whether you're in some sort of a church or a synagogue or a mosque, do you show up differently with your family? Do you show up at all on digital? There's some folks that we talk to in these webinars that haven't upgraded their picture in 20 years on LinkedIn, or their profile is not up to date. Well, when people check you out and you're not accurate, then is that part of your personal brand? Are you showing up in the way that you need to show up? So it's an open-ended question. Hopefully you can answer that. And your personal brand is fluid, isn't it? If you think about Elon as an example, prior to Twitter, most people thought, this guy is unbelievable. Richest man in the world, building rockets, sending people up to space, sending people to Mars eventually. He had a pretty solid reputation, and then things changed for him. Maybe, that video you all saw about him saying, I don't care about advertisers, go blank yourself, I don't care, turned a lot of people off. So all those interactions affected how people saw him. Think about your careers. You may have started in a certain place in a certain industry, and then over time had to change 1, 2, or 3 different times. Because one of the things that people know you for is your credibility. And credibility means how they see you, not only as a human being, but in the workspace. I've happened to have 2 or 3 different careers in my young age. Don't stop laughing, please. But the idea is you have to always adjust and morph. And I'll give you an example. A good friend of ours asked us about this personal branding stuff. And he said, I'm really interested in this. I just don't know why I would do it. And I said, why don't we go through a little exercise and figure out if it's important for you to do anything? So I said, how do you think people see you today? He says, well, I think people see me as a packaging guy because I'm in the manufacturing of packaging space. I said, do you want to be seen that way? He says, actually, I don't. I said, what do you want to be seen as? He says, I'd like to be seen as a business growth person because I've taken the business from 30 to $100 million, and I'd rather be seen that way. I said, tell me why that's important to you. He said, well, at the end of the day, I don't own this business. And in 5 years, I may look for another gig. And if people see me only as a packaging guy, then I'm going to be pigeonholed into that vertical. So the answer to him was, great. Now we've got to get people to see you by shifting the narrative on how people see you today to seeing you more broadly. So that means we need to get content out there that allows them to see that side of you. So it's fluid in that context, and it can change over time. And then, is it serving you? It's the number one question. If you see yourself consistent with the brand, people see you the certain way, everything's working, you're making money, you're happy, life is great, then maybe more people need to see you or more people get exposed to your brand. So the question of if it's serving you is really something that you should think about in that context as well. So if that's personal brand, what's personal branding? Kind of answered the question, isn't it? It's now looking at it with intentionality and saying, as our friend did earlier, I need to move the narrative on how people see me. It's not a horrible thing to move the narrative. It's actually a positive thing to move the narrative because it's not from bad to good. It's from how they see me to how I want to be seen. And so everybody has a different reason for that. So you have to think of your own and say why that narrative will be important to you. And here's what's important. It's not direct selling. So you will probably compare this and say, oh, well, people build their personal brands on TikTok, and they do, and they're doing it to sell something. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in our case, the way that we look at this is about original content sharing and education. And we're going to share that on a slide in a minute. It doesn't mean you won't sell stuff. You will sell stuff. It's just you're building trust. And if you can think about that, we're going to have a slide on that in a minute. When you build trust, everything else becomes easier. So this isn't, I'm doing a video and there's a link at the bottom to buy my stuff. This is, you're going to be helping people. And this is what we're talking about. So I'll let you read that for a moment. And the most important piece of that quote is your perspectives. As I shared at the beginning, you're the only person in the world with your perspectives. So you may have gone to the same leadership class as one of your colleagues, but the experience that you had, and let's use an example of you had to terminate somebody, that's only you that had that experience. And what happened in that thing, and how can you teach people to be better at that? That's one example of how knowledge can be shared. And of course, there's a new thing. You know, we talk about B2B and B2C and B2G and all that other stuff, but there's a new one called H2H, and that's we define as human to human. What human to human is now, people buy from people. People trust people. People don't trust brands as much as they used to. And why is that? Well, when you're delivering human contact and you're connecting with others and you're doing it for the good of the delivery of the content, people will trust you and people will give you the benefit of whatever doubt that they may have had in the past. So it humanizes the business. If you're a leader, it gets you in front of it. And with the advent of AI today, with almost 90% of the content in the next 2 years that'll be on social will be generated by AI, we believe that humanization is going to be the real new differentiator. Now, here's a study that was done by PwC. So if you're in the business development world or you're a CEO looking to grow your business, think about this for a moment. If 70% of a decision can be made before the prospect ever shows up and connects with you, they're making a decision on you before they even talk to you. So how are they doing that today? Your social feeds and your website. But wouldn't it be interesting if they got a feel for the people behind the business or the leaders behind the business? Interesting, right? And there's another stat that 5.4 buyers for every B2B sale. So how are you reaching the people that you're not talking to? It's a question, right? So we believe that if more people are out there inside a business sharing their personal brand, and I want to be very clear on this, this isn't sharing company content. That's marketing. What we're talking about is you leveraging your personal brand, your experience, your credibility with the world, and now you're touching all the people that you know in your particular network. So it's really interesting, right? And then there's the trust factor that is also being built when you're building over time with all kinds of employees out there. Then you get a positive perception of the organization and you close the loop on this problem. So personal branding builds trust with all stakeholders. Now, let's spend a moment here. Was there someone trying to get in? Oh, okay, cool. So if you start thinking about what are the outcomes of personal branding, well, we all know that if you're out there building your personal brand, you can drive business growth. There's never been a more difficult time to draw talent in, and talent, especially Gen Xers, and they want to be able to see inside the business. So winning the war for talent, having the leader out there or leaders out there can be very helpful in giving a window into the real culture of the organization, as opposed to just looking at the website and trying to get a feel for it that way. You want to grow your industry profile, you want to do speaking gigs, all those other things, philanthropic efforts, you can see the rest of it. We talk to CEOs sometimes who are looking to raise money, and we say, well, you're not out there, nobody knows who you are. How easy is that going to be for you today? But if you were out there and people can go check out your YouTube channel and see 30, 40, 50 videos, get a real feel for what you're about, wouldn't that make it easier? Same thing for selling the business, et cetera, et cetera. And the last two are employees love when their leaders are out there. Why? There's a source of pride. And when you start to give and when you start to see the results of that, people are excited about that. And of course, it's an instant digital feedback loop. There's no better marketing than being out there on social media, sharing content and getting feedback instantly. Every marketer will tell you that. But again, we're talking people to people here, not people to company.
Now, Alan, we had an interesting question I wanted to interject right now because I think it's pretty relevant. And the question is, how does trust play a factor in companies that are not well known, i.e. a small privately held company probably doesn't have any trust issues because of a lack of brand awareness. And I think in your previous slide, like 2 slides ago, you kind of talked about the importance of the individual branding over the company. I'm just wondering, does being in an organization that has a lack of brand awareness for the organization, how does that affect your personal brand, and how should you be thinking about that?
Well, it's interesting, right? We all know that if we think about it in the context, and Leanne, please jump in. I can't see you, so you'll have to jump in after I'm done my start of this. If you think about company branding, it takes a long time to build a brand, doesn't it? On average, there are the exceptions in the world, but on average, it takes years to build a brand of a company. But how quick can you build the brand of a person? Well, think about this for a moment. We're going to show you some slides later on today about the power of your existing network. So think about all your cohorts. You're a small business. Let's say you're 15 people. Well, if all 15, including the leader, were out there, and you do the math with me, they're going to reach tens of thousands of people without selling in any hard way. They're building trust through sharing of content and helping people understand how to buy what that company sells. It's so much quicker because it's right now, it's instant. Because someone will buy from you, from your company, when they're ready to buy from you. You can't force someone to buy from you, but you have a relationship already with people on your LinkedIn and your Instagram and your TikTok or whatever the platforms you have. So you're just engendering trust by building that and sharing that with others on your personal brand. So that's how it happens. Leanne, anything you would add to that?
The only thing I would add would be that you get to a place where you're building the company brand by building your own personal brands, because people see where you work. So by educating people, you're building trust for you, but you're also building trust for the company that you're at.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Bradley, any other questions around that? Or
Nope, that's it so far.
Awesome, thank you. So where I was going with that is, and this is kind of what it's perfect timing, is there are no filters between you and the audience you want to reach today. None. You're your own media. You know, when we had our marketing agency for 20 odd years, we used to tell people in the last 5, you need to become a media company, which really meant content marketing, right? But what we're talking about now as a human, you have the opportunity to do the same things, except it's about you and the things that you know and the things that you love. That's what we're not just talking about your expertise with relation to your business, although, you know, that could be a direct thing. As an example, we have one of our clients who's an M&A lawyer. All he talks about is M&A. Why? Because that's what his audience is interested in. And his audience doesn't get access to lawyers without spending $1,000 an hour. He's giving them free information on what you need to think about if you're in or about to consider an M&A. So what will happen ultimately is that when someone looks at it going, that's the lawyer I want to have because he's giving, he's funny, he's interesting, and he knows his stuff. So he's spending 2 or 3 or 4 years building his brand that will come back to his business at some point. Make sense? Okay, cool. And then, of course, Leanne, I'll hand it over to you.
So oddly, this took me by surprise. 95% of the CEOs that we speak with, and we've spoken to many in the last 2 years, ask the question, why would anyone listen to me? And the answer to that question is the very first video, which is, well, and the quote, what is obvious to you is likely amazing to others, and only you are you. So only you have the unique perspectives on whatever events have led you to the success that you have today. And so it may be obvious to you because you've lived through it, but there's many, many, many people that haven't. So we're into the meat of it now. So we're going to talk a little bit about, so what are the intentional steps? So how do we go forward in building our brand intentionally? So the framework is really what we call determining your brand DNA, which is what are those things you stand for and what do you have your perspectives on, and the strategy and positioning. Where do I fit into the bigger world with my reputation? And then planning your content, distributing your content, producing your content, and then obviously audience, how do I engage my audience and how do I grow my audience? So the very first step is, if you look at these 3 circles, is really where they intersect. Probably the most important part of that to find your uniqueness is, what are my passions? And when I say passion, I don't mean, you know, your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your partner, your dog, your cat, your kids, going out for dinner. We all love those things, hopefully. When I say passion, I mean, what are those things that hurt your heart? What are those things that drive you crazy and you feel you need to change? Or what are those things that make you really, really angry? Because those are the things that you feel passionate about. So think about what those things might be. What am I interested in that may be different from anybody else? Or what are my interests that might be a common interest, but maybe I have some different perspectives on them? And then we look at perspective. When we think about perspective, it's kind of a mirror and a lens. So it's kind of a mirror from the past and a lens to the future, because everything that we've experienced to today filters what and reflects what we're going to decide going forward. So everything from today on, you know, we have the perspective we have because of what's come before it. So if you think about what would I tell my younger self based on my journey, though, you'll start to get some unique perspectives. And do I have a vision for the future that is different from maybe what other people have? Or what is my vision for the future? What, and Alan mentioned earlier, credibility and expertise. What am I known for? What do people know me for? And what is my expertise? Because you may have some expertise that you've never talked about or that isn't obvious in the job that you're in. And it's good to list those out. And once you have all that listed, look and see where things intersect, because they always intersect. And when they intersect, they'll intersect in about 3 or 4 spots. And that's really the core of your brand DNA and what you can start to talk about. That's what makes you unique. And as Larry said, find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. And I must say, while he didn't say it in those words, Shakespeare also said that. So it gives it,
I didn't know that.
it gives it a little bit more credibility. Because they're going, who's Larry? So when we think about,
Sorry, I have a question for you. So finding your uniqueness is sometimes easier said than done because
Yep.
obviously we're all kind of in the weeds on what we do every day, and we don't always find what we do so unique or interesting. Do you have any pointers on how to find what's unique and going to resonate with a specific cohort that you want to reach? Are there any tools or any tips or tricks you can offer?
well, if you start to list those things out and you really start with your passion and your perspective, because the major things that have happened in your life, maybe if you think about it as times that you failed at something and picked yourself up and learned from that, those are your major sort of perspectives, because you had to learn from whatever that experience was. So if you start listing out sort of the uniqueness, so if there's something that it kind of pisses you off or something that hurts your heart, like an injustice, then you can start to really, once you get it all listed, then you'll find that middle section. But if you're having a really hard time, I mean, this is something that we spend 2 hours with clients on, right, during discovery. So it's hard to, I know it's not easy to do it on yourself, but sit down with a good friend, sit down with a coworker, sit down maybe with somebody who doesn't know you as well that can ask questions and help you get to some of these answers. But if you have a good friend or someone that's known you for a long time, they can be very helpful too.
Yeah, and Leanne, one of the shortcut questions that we ask is, if you were to write a book, what would that book be about? And what that does is it hones in on what you think is important. It doesn't always, as a matter of fact, most times it doesn't hone in on what your business expertise is. It's what you care about most. So if you think about that question of the book, that might help you get started. And then everything that Leanne talked about, when you get the slides, take those circles and start to write out what you believe in bullet form, and then it'll start to take some shape. And that it is not easy to look at yourself that way, but it's magical on the other end of that process. But it is a process.
The interesting part about that is when we do the interactive workshops, we have people that say, well, I have 2 books. I have one that's sort of business focused and one that's more personal. And I'll say, lay it on us. And they'll give us the title, what both books are about. And it's like, see, there's a really common thing in those 2 books that you could actually write one book and combine both things. So if people start to think about it that way, that may be an easier way to kind of find where you are unique or what different perspectives you have. And just to give you an example, there was one gentleman who was the CEO of a large global company that made it his mission to have a 15-minute coffee with every single employee around the world. And he had stories from that. And his whole thing was leadership. So you can see what unique perspectives he would have based on the global part of it and the different employees and the fact that he's really a servant leader going around having a 15-minute coffee with people. So until COVID hit and he couldn't fly around anymore, but then he did it virtually. So when we get there, when you get to that place of, yeah, I think this will work. And again, as you start to build your content, you may realize that maybe I need to focus more on this and more on that. But until you have to start somewhere. And once you start somewhere, then things will become more clear, because they won't be all these things sort of floating in the air. So once you determine, okay, well, I think these core things work for me, then we have to think about content. Now, the different kinds of content, we love video because it's the most authentic. People can see you, people can see how you react, how you're delivering what you're talking about. There are blog posts, but with AI, many people just, use AI to write their blog posts, so it doesn't really show your personality, and it's hard to see passion in a blog post. But they're all done in a storytelling way. So whatever it is that you're talking about. So when Alan was talking about leadership, he was always giving an example from something of when he was leading a team globally and, in the different parts of the world. So he had those unique perspectives. So if he was talking about something to do with that, then he would use a small story to illustrate his point, and that makes it interesting. That's what keeps people watching. But you can also use quotes. You can use images on your post. That also is a good way, but hard to tell a story. So we do really like video because it is the most authentic. So when it actually gets down to the planning of the content, now that we're thinking about storytelling, if you think about it like a book, divide it into 12 chapters and have one topic for every chapter. Plan that out and then go back and say, okay, how can I divide this topic into 4? And then that gives you a month of content. So each chapter representing a month of the year. And then when you're deciding, am I going to do a video? Am I going to do a blog? Am I going to do a quote or a post and a picture? For the videos, you can look in, or even the blog post. Am I going to be educating or just doing this to engage with my audience? Do I want to try to champion some new ideas and really show my vision for what I think the future is? Do I want to be a bit provocative? Hopefully positively, with disruptive thinking, and then again the vision, or do I have a new perspective or a new way that perhaps people could look at things, either happening in the world or things that are coming up? So you kind of tweak people's interest. Now, social media engagement, you can read that, but it's really about consistency and longevity. So if you're going to do it for 3 weeks and stop, don't do it. Just, even if you can only do one post that shows your stuff a week, then do that, but do it for the long haul. And engage with your audience. So the thing you can start to do today, right now, is to go on LinkedIn and start commenting on people's stuff, liking people's stuff, because that lets the algorithm know that you're live and you're there. And when you comment on someone's video or post or blog, it actually, other people see that and they'll go and check you out. And you'll start to see, you'll get more requests for connection or followers. And so it's a good way to, it's a slow start. It's a good way to start. And even when you start posting, you should be doing that too. For distribution, fish where the fish are. So maybe you find that a lot of your audience is really contained on LinkedIn. Or if you're more on a retail side, where you're B2B2C, maybe you want to be on Instagram or Facebook. And TikTok really serves a wide audience, but you really have to be video based for that. So you'd have to be pretty comfortable with making videos. And then obviously the more people that see your content, the better chance you have for improving engagement and driving whatever metrics are important to you. And when you're consistent, you'll have success. So
to your question, to your comment about consistency, is the format of the content being consistent important? I.e., if you choose video, as the content type. Does it need to be video every time? Is it beneficial to move between video and longer form editorial and graphics and other things, or is it better to just focus on one medium and stick to it?
Well, the reason we like video is a couple of reasons. It's the most authentic, but it also, if you put it on a YouTube channel, it also serves for search on your name. So you're building a whole album of videos and content that people can search for. You're also putting it resident on LinkedIn, because usually LinkedIn is the base for every business person. And it just makes you more searchable. So video's great. Now, and you can't put a blog post on YouTube. You can put it on a website, but you can mix it up for sure. I mean, it's nice to have, I think, at least a video a week. And then if you want to do 2 posts, maybe you want to do a blog post that kind of summarizes that video, only it's in writing with a picture.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And then the other thing to add is that long form and short form. On average, we recommend 90 seconds to 2 minutes for the primary video, for all the reasons that everybody knows. Just people's attention spans are not there. However, long form on YouTube is becoming more and more and more popular. That's what it was designed for originally before shorts came out. So if you have something more to say, do that and spend 40 minutes or an hour. In our case, we have a podcast that we do with each of our clients. So we get the long form there, and then the 2-minute short form kind of helps drive to the YouTube channel so that people can get their experience on YouTube of more of you, as opposed to the 90 seconds and 2 minutes at a time.
So, sorry, one follow-up question. So there's it's become kind of common to see more simple point and shoot videos on social, whether that's LinkedIn or TikTok, where you're just kind of recording yourself. There's a sales expert that I follow on TikTok that it's him talking all the time. Very lo-fi, nothing fancy there. I don't often see that kind of style on YouTube. If that's your style, how does YouTube, is YouTube still beneficial, and how does YouTube need to be more polished than what you may see on other social channels?
So here's the magic, right? Back to that original thing, people want to connect with people. Behind the scenes is much more powerful than people think, and they want real. Real meaning REAL. They don't want overly polished stuff, because that feels like marketing. So when we first started this, we had beautiful thumbnails and everything was great, and bubbles and graphics, and people wouldn't click on them because they said, oh, they're selling me something. As opposed to, I'm on Zoom today, I push a button and I record, and it includes a couple of ums and a couple of stumbles, because that's how human beings are. So whether you're pointing a phone at your face or a computer or whatever it is, we want you to be real, as like you're having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine across from somebody. They asked you a question and you're talking as authentically as you can. So not overly polished, and that style, it lends itself to other people. Some people wouldn't be great at that. Others are amazing at it. So back to your authentic self, know what you're about, know what you're real, and know, more importantly, what your audience responds to, and then deliver that. But it has to be real. And Leanne, anything you would add to that?
I would. For the TikTok style that they do, what a lot of TikTokers do is they combine all of those videos in some sort of order. So maybe they get, if the video's 2 minutes, say, if it's 1 minute, they can post it as a short. But if it's more than a minute, they'll take 5 or 6 or 10 TikToks and combine them all into one video, because YouTube actually quite likes longer videos, or 1 minute and less. And they'll combine them all and post that as one video. So it can, absolutely. And the shorts are done in the long format, but TikTok is actually now encouraging the cinematic format as well. So they want, for some reason, they want us to turn our phones. I'm not sure why, but.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right, so let's just dive into some of the data for you data geeks out there, and for you people who are looking for business growth. This is the exponential growth opportunity that just happens to be on LinkedIn. So I'm just going to spend a moment on this. If you were to do some math today with me and do it in your own head, that yourself, your colleagues, if you're leading the business and say, I have an executive team of 5 people, and everybody on average, to keep the math, has got 2,000 connections. Ask yourself this question. Do they all know what I do for a living? And if they do, are they in a position to give me a referral or a direct connection? On average, what we hear is about 20% say, yeah, 20% know what I do and the rest don't. Think about the opportunity. If you're building your personal brand, you're not selling, you're sharing, you're connecting with people. You activate, in this case, 2,000, but do the math times your colleagues that have 5. Now it's 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 people that know who you are, which gives you access to the next tier and the next tier of 15 million, which is such a big number. Oh, but oh my God, do the math with me. If 10 of you are doing it inside the company, how many people are you reaching? Is that better than any marketing you can do? The answer is yes, because you're building trust. And that's where leads can actually come from those things. So I'd like you to think about that math and the purpose and the ROI behind this. And then here's behind the scenes what happens on LinkedIn today. So if you post something today, 90% of the people are what we call voyeurs. Not we call, what LinkedIn calls voyeurs. That means that that's in that growth number of views and how many people see your post. And you think, well, that's not a big deal. Well, I'm going to come back to that in a second. 9% are the people that share and post. And what we want you to do is do that all the time. Because, by the way, as Leanne said, when you are commenting on others, you are building your personal brand more than just the algorithm, because what you say matters to the person that you're saying it to and the people that read that. So remember, that investment is a huge investment. Doesn't take a lot of time, but boy, does it have great results. Creators, of course, is what we're trying to turn everybody we talk to into. Why? If we do that, and social media goes from the cesspool that it can be to a place where we engage and teach and share, which is really awesome. Now, back to the voyeur. Stuff is happening inside that 90%. You don't even know. Leads will show up from that 90%. A podcast request will show up from that 90%. You're going to go to an event, someone goes, hey, Brad, love that video you did the other day. Really cool. If you grow your audience based on over time, maybe you'll get 100 views the first time, and then 3 months later, you're starting to get 300 views and you're getting 1,000 views. Forget about all the crap you see on YouTube. Oh, getting 500,000 views. That's very rare. The average human being doesn't get that. But as long as you're growing that side of it, more people are seeing it, and that'll expose you to some really cool things. So, and then the question we get often is, well, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, it is work. There's no question. But once you get into a rhythm, it's not that bad. But Simon has a thought for us on how long before I see an impact.
Too many of us confuse that the short-term impacts that we're having are producing long-term value, or conversely, having no short-term impact means we're having no value. So for example, you can't go to the gym for 9 hours and get into shape. It literally doesn't work, no matter how much effort you put in. But if you work out every single day for 20 minutes, guaranteed 100% you will get into shape. When will you get into shape? No clue. Over time. And everyone's different. Some people a little quicker, some people a little slower. And yet we are 100% sure it'll 100% work. I just don't know when. And we're also obsessed with predicting when. It has to be this quarter, it has to be the end of the year, it has to be when we pay taxes. And I got very comfortable saying, I know that if I stick to the process, I know 100% it's going to work. And I have to get comfortable that I have no control over when. And so the things that I wrote about and start with is the game plan that I have followed since I first wrote about it.
So what we tell people is this: it can be overwhelming, but if you schedule it as a meeting every week with yourself, then it becomes part of your life. And that's the secret, is to be part of your life. Otherwise, if it's a project, it'll never get done. And of course, you might be thinking, because Leanne talked about video, I'm uncomfortable in front of video. Well, the first time you went to the gym or you went for a run, you couldn't run as far or lift as much as you do today. So this is a skill. And if you're a leader in any capacity at all, learning to tell a story on one topic inside 2 minutes is a skill. And when you learn it, your meetings will be a lot better in your company. I can tell you that. So in this case, we talk about, you're not confident about it yet. Just keep doing it until you're confident. And here's the fun part. You can practice on this thing or on your Zoom or on your Teams or whatever it happens to be until you feel good about it. You never have to release anything until you're happy. So you can practice and practice and practice until you get it right. And I love this part here because this is what's happening in most of you right now.
Sorry.
That's right. Here we go.
You will never feel ready to do things that scare you. You will never feel ready to take that leap. Your brain is designed to protect you, and change requires risk. And so you are protecting yourself by saying maybe tomorrow. If you want to change your life, you must make a decision to change your life.
And of course, the quote that's next to it is kind of a metaphor for all of our lives, right? The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. One of our clients, hilarious guy, not hilarious, haha, but he said to us, you know what? I am going to hate this, but it's like broccoli. I know it's good for me and I have to do it. Because he's an introvert, doesn't want to get on video, but recognizes it's good for him and his business to be on this journey of building his personal brand to help build his business. So that's how he looked at it. And all of us have things in our lives that we have to think about. And personal branding is just one of those aspects that we've seen some incredible results of. So here's what we'd like you to think about as we close this and open up for questions. If you think about this, you're 18 months from today, things are working out well. Ask yourself, what's happening? I'm moving from unknown to known in my circle. What's happening? It's your own answers. And if you know that, then that gives you your why you should do this. And we hope that today we've encouraged you to at least think about that and giving you some tools to get there. So we're going to close that off. And Bradley, I hand it back over to you, sir, for moderation of the questions.
Well, thank you very much, and for everyone that's listening, please feel free to put some questions in the chat while you guys are thinking about that and typing up questions. I do have a few questions that were shared ahead of time. The first one is, and this is specific for a sales perspective. So from a sales perspective, how important is it that your personal brand or the content that you're creating and commenting on and engaging with, how important is it that content is based around your category or versus a broader area like sales in general, right? So setting yourself up as like a sales expert versus setting yourself as an expert for that category. Is there one over the other that you would recommend? Are there benefits and challenges with either?
So let's think about your audience for a moment. So if we're on LinkedIn, let's talk about those 2,000 people that are your audience. What matters the most to them would be the first thing. You say, okay, well, they know me from X. Then what matters most to me and the things that I'm trying to do. So if it happens to be, so I'll use myself as an example. So I happen to have an incredible passion for leadership. I can't make $1 off leadership. I don't sell consulting services for leadership. But when I put a video out on leadership, people go, oh, I like Alan's perspective on leadership. And every time they see what happens, they see my LinkedIn profile. It says personal branding expert. So I put out my passion and then now they're connecting. So you see that on your LinkedIn, how many people have seen your profile? That's where it comes from. So whatever you're passionate about is what the most important thing is. Now, let's be really clear. If you're trying to sell stuff by using personal branding, then keeping it inside those lines is helpful as part of the content. But you want to have a passion. So in my case, I do videos on leadership and personal branding. Those are my two core things. And I stay in my lane. I don't talk about the war. I don't talk about this. I don't talk about that, because that just gets it noisy and it doesn't serve me. So, Leanne, anything you would add?
No, I would say, comment on what interests you and where your expertise lies and what you're known for, and not necessarily your opinions on something outside of that. Because save your opinions on things that are debatable, such as politics, wars, things like that, unless you're a politician, for your friends and family, because it can actually do more harm to your brand than anything, because you're going to get people who disagree. When you stay on business topics to your expertise and credibility, even if it's not in your lane. So if I sell IT security, or I'm an IT security consultant, you know, I'm going to talk about things that are happening in the world, like hackers and Trojans and the latest, you know, mousetrap, whatever it is, or things like that. But I could also be talking about technology in general, AI, how AI fits into the whole thing. So.
And the thing that's interesting about some folks say, you know, I don't want to get in social because of all the cesspool that it can be. There's a safe side of social, and the safe side of that is if you're teaching people, you get 0 comments. We have had, I think, over 600 videos in the last 2 years done. We've had 0 negative comments on any of them. We've had people say, oh, I have another perspective on that. That's amazing. That's what you want. You want conversations, but not one negative comment. And that shows that you're teaching and you're helping and you're educating. From a sales perspective, we used to say, we're helping people buy versus selling them, right? And then the distinction is there. I was talking to a large bank the other day in Canada, and they said, oh, we're all over that personal branding thing. And I went to look at their thing. All they're doing is sharing company content. That's not personal branding. And if that's what you're doing today, your audience doesn't care about that. So think about the questions that your customers ask you and answer those. Those are very powerful. So the customers could say, wow, I really like the way this person thinks and helps me.
So I see a few marketers who are on the phone or on this call, and so I'm going to ask a question on their behalf. And so personal branding, you mentioned kind of for the CEO, the senior executive team, important in positioning the company. So how does a marketer get started here, right? Because especially if you're an inbound or outbound marketer, you're not going to be doing this for yourself. You're going to be doing this for your executive, your CEO, etc. How do you get started? And in particular, video content takes time, takes commitment from the executive. Any pointers on how to simplify that and gain executive buy-in, particularly with the amount of time that would need to be invested on their side?
Dan, do you want to start or you want me to start?
No, you can take that one.
Okay, cool. Well, the first thing, let's talk about the time issue. So what we believe is you can do batching of content. In other words, do 3, 4, 5 videos at a time, and then that gives you 4, 5, 6 weeks of content. If you choose to say, I'm going to do, in just 12 weeks in a quarter, so I'm going to do 6 videos, then you can do them in one shot and your content's done for the quarter if you're doing it once a week. If you're working with your CEO, the distinction is really, really an important one between marketing and personal branding. They work together, but they're not the same, right? So marketing is designed to drive, ultimately leads or keep customers happy, whatever it happens to be, right? We know that stuff really well. Personal branding is supplemental to it. So do a great job on your marketing, building brand, all the things that are under that advertising. And now look at the individuals that are doing the same thing, but they're answering and helping customers. So Leanne used the example of IT security. So the marketers are going to be saying, here's the latest Gartner report, here's blah, blah, blah. We're doing all that. You're going, now, here's how you deal with the latest hack, Frank, from me. Oh, that's really cool. That's awesome. That's great. And they'll share it because Alan said it, not because the company said it. They don't have a relationship with the company. They have a relationship with you. So take advantage of that.
Okay. Yeah. And so when I'm sure you have instances where an executive is trying to build their own personal brand, hasn't either is coming to you because of time or because they're not happy with how they're tracking. Have you found any common kind of like, here's what they missed? Like, is there common reasons why they come to you that they're not able to solve on their own?
Yeah, consistency. Or they're sharing corporate information and not they haven't really figured out what their brand DNA is. So their uniqueness. And so it comes off as being corporate speak, but for the most part, it's consistency. If you think about it, if I were to write a blog every week or whatever, if I were to actually write it, not AI, what would that be about? And so it's the same kind of thing. And if you could just be consistent even once a week, and even if the whole executive team could do that and then amplify each other's stuff, it would be amazing. So
Yeah. Time is a big deal as well. But you can learn the hacks to be able to make it part of your life, right? People only do things that are valuable to them. I mean, that's the end of the day. Time is a proxy for value. So if you find a way to say, now I know all the tricks to how to do this, and I can invest an hour a week or half an hour a week, then wow, life is really good. And by the way, it is in batches. You might invest 3 hours in a month, and it might be in 2 chunks, and then you're doing 15 minutes at a time, on your phone from here and there, and it works beautifully. And it doesn't look like you're there every single day because you don't have the time to be on there 6 hours a day every day. But there are tricks that you could do to make it work.
Okay. Well, guys, we're at time. So Alan, Leanne, thank you very much for sharing your perspective with this group. For those of you that were able to join the call, thank you for your time. We will be sending a recap to everyone in the next 24 hours. And if you have any questions, if you want to reach out and connect with Alan and Leanne, there will be some contact information in that follow-up. But just want to appreciate or thank everyone for their time, and we look forward to having many of you join future sessions. If you're looking for more opportunities to build your expertise in various areas of business, check out our webinars at nextlevelcatapult.com. There's a little webinar section, which most of you had found because you registered for this webinar. We've got at least a webinar a week, and we have events posted all the way through July or August, I believe, at this point. So take a look and sign up, and we look forward to seeing everyone again. And again, Alan, Leanne, thank you very much for your time.
thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Have a good. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.